guarantee the Gigabytes have a strong top half of the map.
And remember last game, it wasn't that Kha'Zix was banned away, it's simply that Gigabyte Marines decided they wanted Graves over Kha'Zix. So high likelihood they'll probably go back towards that ganking style this game. The bans for TSM are already in though. Ziggs, Kennen, and LeBlanc all going to be banned away. Their opponents responding with the Shen and the Ivern. Really not liking the idea of those protective style champions.
And probably Lulu will round it out, very similar to what we saw before. That means that the first pick will likely be the Karma from TSM, and it's not as impressive anymore because this is exactly what happened last game.
This is just a mirror of the previous match.
But now I want to see the Gragas priority. This is what we should expect from the Gigabyte Marines, and there it is, right? So this is much more of what we'd expect. And then fine, okay, so they've gone back for the Graves. I don't think this is necessarily a problem. You still have a powerful jungler. You still hold yourself just fine in terms of your early game presence, your ability to invade. They just had one bad gank down in the bottom lane. That's likely just the perception that Levi has. And he said, you know what, guys, I remember, I don't gank bot normally. I'm going to go back to ganking top and mid.
So this isn't normally what I do. I forgot that we don't play around this lane. You guys, I'm just going to leave you alone. Don't worry about it. Svenskeren, he's on the lead, though, for the third time in a row, as it looks like TSM is also going to pick up a big tanky AP top laner to go against a big tanky AP top laner.
So TSM are just mirroring their draft from before. They've identified that this is definitely a composition that can work. I literally even wrote down mirror instead of Nautilus. What? I don't know. I don't know why. All right, to round things out, normally you'd expect the AD carry Slay. He's most comfortable. AD is the Ashe. So if he gets that for himself, then he's going to be a pretty happy camper. Now, what we're likely to see from TSM is the same bans as before. You want to ban away... well, actually, no. I don't think they need to ban away the Fizz because you know what the enemy top laner and jungler are. So it probably makes more sense to ban away supports. Champions like... Ooh, you could just ban away the Nami. I don't know if it's worth banning Sona because you've clearly already had a good answer to it before.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're Gigabyte Marines, you just start targeting AD carries. So the Varus and Lucian will probably be taken off the board.
Well, there's the Varus. Gigabyte Marine's going to go ahead and agree with you on that one. TSM thinking about what they want to remove here. They've still got their mid laner and their AD carry to pick. So thinking about what might get in the way of those picks being successful. It looks like Zyra is the choice.
Remember that after the nerfs to Malzahar, he really has fallen off a lot in terms of value. However, Archie has still played it. He played it in the VP game, which they ended up losing. But it's still a pick that they could go for, even if it's not as optimal as, say, it used to be in the past. I feel like the Nami would make more sense here, which is why I would expect TSM to ban that one away, given just the strength of the champion.
Well, Ezreal removed by Gigabyte Marines, deciding they don't want to allow Turtle on that one again. Turtle's problems with putting himself in precarious situations are significantly alleviated when you have a built-in flash on a 10-second cooldown.
Yep. But now he's probably just going to go for the Lucian, right? Like, it was banned away from him before. With the other utility carries taken off the board, it just makes the most sense. The only other exception to the rule that I would expect would possibly be the Caitlyn. But I feel like Lucian would much better fit in his bandwagon. That would give you a powerful pushing lane down bottom.
Well, Gigabyte Marines thinking about that Fizz. And it is locked in there for the mid lane.
The blind pick Fizz. Interesting. So in terms of, I mean, like, his laning kind of sucks early on. Once he gets level 6, his ability to all-in is very good. And if Bjergsen wants to match to that, I guess the best pick would actually be to pick some kind of an assassin into him. Ever since the changes to Fizz, Kassadin was often considered actually a pretty strong pick. And with the recent changes, you could go for it, but there's also a large element of risk if you end up falling behind hard early. So instead, you just go for a safer option. I think that Orianna is absolutely fine in terms of being able to trade early and in terms of her ability to scale later on.
Well, Ori and Kate are the pickups on the side of TSM. You said that Lucian is what you were expecting, but Kate was also a possibility, and it looks like they want to go with a little bit safer, longer range of an option. Also, can't forget what Caitlyn brings to sieges and siege defense scenarios with all those cupcakes.
Oh, there is always the possibility that this is a Gragas support, and they actually end up picking something slightly different in the top. Remember that you could still send the Fizz up to the top lane. Ah, no, okay.
Nope.
They're just going to stick with the standard stuff. Nami is absolutely fine into the Karma. But yeah, I think that this Fizz pick is definitely a big risk. During the early laning phase, it is really rough. Arguably, it's even harder against the Orianna because of the low cooldown on her Q and just how much damage her basic attacks do, and every time Fizz tries to farm. But she has very similar issues too, in the sense that she is a low mobility mid lane mage, and she is very susceptible to ganks. So the moment that Optimus does hit level 6, then that is a dangerous lane.
It's a prime target.
Exactly.
For Levi to slide in there and look to make a play. Speaking of Levi, eyes on him like they usually are when you watch Gigabyte Marines, but especially now after having a subpar game number 3, one where he essentially gifted double buffs and a kill over to his opponents as his opening gambit. This time he needs to change it up. This time he needs to make sure that he's doing that same job he did in games 1 and 2 and getting everybody on the board.
The Gigabyte Marines, they still have that 1-game buffer. Remember that they're 2-1 up over teams TSM.
Right.
It's not really, again, like we talk about a lot, but it very much goes against the expectations. It is TSM that are fighting for their lives, and while if either team loses, they will still get another opportunity. You still play one best of 5 against the loser of tomorrow's series.
So you don't want to be that team.
You definitely don't.
You're not playing this to say, okay, it's cool, we don't care about this one, we'll just win the other one.
Yeah, exactly.
Win this one, punch your ticket, and relax this weekend.
Completely agree with you, Captain Flowers. Let's see if the Gigabyte Marines can secure their ticket, or if TSM has said, hang on a second, you might need to refund that.
Yeah, I'll have to see if they have to go ahead, get a receipt along with it. As we're opening into Summoner's Rift for the 4th time today. Gigabyte Marines fans wishing that this game didn't even have to be played. TSM fans breathing a collective sigh of relief that we're still here.
The fans as ecstatic as ever. 4 games, TSM being pushed to the brink.
Brazil's been a hell of a crowd so far.
Oh, they really have.
Imagine what it'll be like once we actually get to the main stage of MSI 2017 in the upcoming weeks. Should be even crazier. As TSM takes the defensive stance, 5-man line, point for point.
And remember what you said, Captain Flowers. The level 1 plays from TSM lost them games. The game that they didn't do a level 1 play, they won. Coincidence? Yep. I think not.
You just stand around, don't do anything stupid at level 1, and you can't put yourself on your back foot before the minions even collide. TSM, happy to play this one slow at the start, not looking for any unnecessary disadvantages to come their way by level 1 accidents.
I like how we saw actually grouping. Look, you can see the 3-man unit of Levi, Optimus, and Stark hanging around the Raptors in the event that they saw another invade. Ooh, in the bottom lane, though.
Okay, this is just going to start off about like that, huh? Turtle misses Piltover Peacemaker, but Archie's still going to be in some trouble potentially here. Slay getting himself back. Final headshot comes out, but Turtle and Bio both looking pretty worse for wear as Slay is essentially full HP.
And bear in mind, he's also gone for the long sword with 3 health pots, so he's definitely been the one to come out ahead on this. Archie's going to get a lot of sustain. So now the Gigabyte Marines are just looking to get themselves the push. They want to get that level 2 so they can start being more aggressive in this bottom lane, take more control, and force this Caitlyn Karma back, which is great, because normally what you would expect is that Caitlyn Karma is all about that pushing, that hard shove. Until he's actually going to go back. I guess he's going to have to.
He knows that there's no way that he has no presence in this lane.
Yeah. Wow, that is a rough start to the bottom lane of TSM.
Very difficult to deal with, but that's what you get sometimes when you go for that all-in at level 1. Optimus being shoved in by Bjergsen very early, which of course, that's what you expect. Like you said, his lane pretty much sucks.
Yep.
So he's going to struggle against somebody like Orianna.
He certainly will. He is going for the TP and Corrupting Potion, so basically what you do in that matchup is you just sacrifice your life to get as much farm as you can. Ideally, you want to go back to base at level 4, and you can either pick yourself up a Dark Seal, which is what's commonly built, and an Amp-Tone, or you get yourself a Dark Seal and a Doran's Ring, so you have a little bit more early trading power for that level 6 spike that you want to try and take advantage of. And then you can just TP back into the lane.
Well, Optimus getting aggressive onto Bjergsen, not willing to just let him bully him around, no consequence. Levi, here we go. It's 3 minutes in, Vedius. It's time to go into the enemy jungle.
He's pinging mids.
Bjergsen's very far forward.
But notice how he's playing to the top side of the lane. He's very aware of where Levi is. And so by playing to the top half of his lane, along with the presence of Svenskeren in mid, he's almost baiting it with the anticipation of being able to get the counter gang.
Bjergsen getting some more damage down. Playful Trickster to dodge that last Clockwork windup. Both supports were also very aware of that situation in mid, both ready to rotate, become involved if they had to be.
Yeah, and that was actually a really bad trade from Optimus as well, because now he's going to be forced back earlier than he would have liked. Oh, okay, this is actually pretty good for him. It would have been worse if Bjergsen stuck around, because he can now pick up this farm, go back to base, and he'll still do his standard plan of return to lane with the TP with the extra bit of items that he's been able to get for himself. So it's not all end too badly for Optimus in the middle lane.
Well, Levi's early plan once again doesn't go his way. Luckily for him and his team, this time it doesn't end up with a death, but it's also not him getting them rolling. This is not the Gigabyte Marines success strategy from games number 1 and 2, just because that early window wasn't available, really.
I'm impressed that Haunts has got like a whole 2 waves on top of Stark. I'm not entirely sure how that happened.
Haunts is really turning things up.
Oh, he is. Oh, he certainly is.
Turning things up this series as it's gone on, I should say.
Just warming up, you know, like
yeah, the first
maybe it
games
was
he had to
Chilean
get going.
Yeah.
And you know, I was actually looking at this as something, as one of the factors that I was going to consider as this game went on, is the Gigabyte Marines have been playing the past week. They've been involved in round 1 of the play-in stage. TSM have been practicing. They've been preparing. But that doesn't mean that they've actually got to play against any of these teams that come from different regions and play a different style of League of Legends than what they're used to. So it might have taken TSM those first couple of games to really just warm up and get in the right flow of things to know how to deal with this.
So far, things are certainly going well. Mid has the slight CS advantage. Top surprisingly has the CS advantage. And in the bottom lane, even after the early deficit, while Turtle and Bifrost have been able to reclaim some of the control that they had with the powerful push of Karma and Caitlyn, they're forcing Slay and Archie underneath that turret, and what was a big CS advantage has now equalized out.
And that Gragas, that top lane pick that we were talking about taking priority, is currently behind still compared to Haunser.
Oh, here we go.
As the mid lane play happens, Bjergsen's going to be bursted low, flashing away. It does not matter. The damage between a Fizz and a Graves is way too much. Bjergsen spins the flash.
Lars, do you remember we were talking something about like around the level 6 mark that some kind of target ends up around the mid lane?
Yeah, it's almost like that's exactly what these two are trying to coordinate, and it's almost like that is exactly point for point the textbook Gigabyte Marines game plan.
Oh, for sure. This is clearly something that they have done before. The classic synergy, the well-known synergy of Levi and Optimus. He gets the level 6. Bjergsen isn't even having his ultimate available yet, and they instantly punish. Levi's already in position. They're able to get a very swift kill.
And you can tell the communication between these players on this team as well, just because of the fact that they're saying, hey, I'm level 6 in 5 creeps or whatever. Make sure you're here. Make sure you're ready. We're just going to make this play. Meanwhile, bottom side, Slay and Archie still enjoying themselves a pretty comfortable laning phase. Turtle and Biofrost had gotten back, chopped up a little bit. BF sword on Turtle, so Slay's going to want to get himself back and shop as soon as possible to make sure he's not outdone in the item department. Haunter gets thrown back into the turret with a very nice cask. Luckily, Svenskeren is there to keep him alive, but that was way too close.
Yeah, that could very well have resulted in Haunter's death. Now, bear in mind, he does have the flash available, but look at where Levi is. He's just about to pick up his red buff. I think Svenskeren... Oh! Stark!
Okay. Stark says, remember last game? Your turn.
I was not expecting that. Haunter wasn't expecting that. He was just like, it's fine, guys. I've got flash. I have a shield. And then Stark is like, the belly bop slam!
Just instantly sees that opportunity and takes it. Meanwhile, Bjergsen, again, going to be jumped on, tries to go for the shockwave play onto Levi to make it a 1-for-1, but cannot do it. Svenskeren coming in there trying to mop this up if he can. Biofrost looking to make the play onto Levi, manages to burn him down, but now Sven and Bio both going to be caught up in the bubble. That arrow doesn't find anyone. It's a 1-4 game for TSM as the Gigabyte Marines are off to a very nice start.
But this is the kind of start that the Gigabyte Marines want. They're being proactive, they're making plays happen, and they're doing it around the superstar player Optimus. This guy on Fizz, just punishing the fact that he has the all-in power, but Levi is always there, ready and waiting. Notice he even takes tower aggro right at the start and flashes out of the way of the shockwave too. Archie's here to provide support should you need it, and sure, Biofrost is able to get the flash ignite down to Levi, but all you're doing is transferring that red buff onto this already overfed fish.
2-0-1 on the Fizz. Sorcerer's Shoes done. Hex Tech Revolver running, working towards that Proto Belt. Make him even that much scarier. Meanwhile, the top lane, although Stark is still slightly behind in farm, getting that kill allowed him to buy the Spectre's Cowl. So the trades are going to be a little bit harder for Haunter as the lane goes on.
Gragas is a really strong champion.
I'm beginning to kind of come to that conclusion, my friend. He seems to be very potent in the games that we've seen him in so far.
Oh, yeah. I think coming into the main MSI event, he will be a big talking point, big power pick in particular. So let's have a look. Now, this is something that the Gigabyte Marines did against Lion, where they very early on moved Optimus down to the bottom half of the map. Now, with the vision around the entrance to the bottom river, TSM are fully aware of this play happening. Now, I wonder if Optimus is just going to try and set up a trap, but no, he will get spotted out, and instead, Gigabyte Marines just wanted to have a bit of a taste test, see how TSM would react.
They back themselves away, though. Aren't going to make any crazy decisions. Nothing completely reckless, go for a 50-50, hope we get it, and then turn the fight into a total fiesta. Instead, they want to play this one slowly, play it confidently. Set something up and then make those rotations, make those big decisive calls that we talked about this team being so adept at making. Slay, 78 farm compared to the 91 of Wild Turtles, so the early lane advantage these two had on the side of the Marines not really translating into much as time has gone on. Turtle and Biofrost have done a good job regaining their footing and regaining control of that lane.
Very much what you expect in a Caitlyn Karma. Even if you put them down, they find a way back. The arrow hits Turtle.
Arrow hits Turtle, flashing himself away from the bubble, getting away from the wave follow-up. It looked dicey there for a second, but TSM gets their bottom lane out.
The bubble was just slightly too slow. If it had come out just at the edge, then Wild Turtle wouldn't have been able to get his flash, and that likely would have resulted in a kill in favor of the Gigabyte Marines. So at the very least, it would have forced Wild Turtle back so they can start knocking on the doors of that tower. But now you see the Gigabyte Marines, they know they have... Oh, interesting, Archie's actually just gone back, and they still feel confident enough to go for this Drake as TSM go top lane.
Scarin kicking Stark back as he makes his body slam forwards, trying to stay on top of him long enough to get something happening here. A shockwave to seal his fate, and Scarin will grab TSM their second kill of the game. Meanwhile, Infernal Drake was taken by Gigabyte Marines on the other end of the map, seeing the TSM jungler topside. Now TSM wants to try to get this turret if they can. Turret First Blood is the kind of thing you need to trade for an Infernal Drake to not fall too far behind.
Now, look at this, right? So the response from TSM is actually to move their bottom lane to mid because they know that Archie isn't there, so they think that with the wave clear of Caitlyn Karma, they can actually defend this tower and come out ahead of the play. But when you have a Graves, the ability to siege that tower is so much stronger that Optimus might go for the all-in.
Going for it and finding it. Turtle is out of there. Optimus now going to be locked down a little bit by Bio as Haunter makes his way into the fight. Going to be juggling him around and smacking him down. Shutdown credit goes over to Bio, who's 2-1-0 on that Karma, as TSM will lose their mid lane turret, but they got turret First Blood topside beforehand. Now Stark finding a little bit of damage onto Scarin, who continues chasing after him. Dragon's Rage not available now, will be soon. TSM currently ahead by just a couple hundred gold.
That comes off the back of being able to get that first Tower Blood. The fact that Gigabyte Marines could respawn in the mid lane was the best decision that they could have made. And Wild Turtle, he doesn't respect the all-in power. We've seen it time and time again. I feel like he is positioning in a way that is fairly defensive, but then at the same time, you're a little bit too close to that fish. But I love this TP from Haunter as well. We talked about it earlier on in the series and how, as a top laner, he's very quick to respond to anything that their opponents might quite make. And the fact that he does TP in there allows TSM to at the very least get a kill back. So they end up trading 1-for-1 in terms of turrets and kills, meaning that Gigabyte Marines don't get too far ahead in the play.
Still a very, very close game overall. An Infernal Drake and 500 gold, the two things separating the teams, but that's not really a whole lot, just 13 minutes in. Spirit Visage done now for Haunter, completing that first big item, going to make him very difficult to really do any meaningful damage to for Stark. While mid lane, the Proto Belt on the Fizz. That's such a scary prospect because you saw how much damage Turtle took. It was essentially the Fizz ult, the Playful Trickster, and the Graves ult, and he died from 100%.
He did. Squishy Caitlyn is indeed quite squishy against belts and fish. Now, the Optimus is actually moving in the bottom lane, but notice how the rest of the team is following up.
Scarin using the kick as a disengage to keep himself safe. Haunter down here defending, not really too worried about anything, just slap and slay around. Makes him lose about half his HP. Optimus now gonna be caught out in a really precarious situation here. Ace in the hole comes through. Haunter gonna be juggled. Not really much more to find with it. TSM will hold the line there, and that was a little bit sketchy coming out from the Gigabyte Marines. But they didn't have that coordinated.
It was also a very good response from Team Solomon because they realized that this dive was happening thanks to the vision that they had in their jungle, which meant that Wild Turtle and Biofrost were already on the way bot, and Svenskaren was there lying in wait. So he gets the kick down onto one of the members of the Gigabyte Marines, prevents that dive from happening after Optimus misses his ultimate. So I feel like, while, as you rightly said, there was an element of poor coordination from the side of Gigabyte Marines, it's also just TSM responding in the best way that they could have.
Meanwhile, Slay getting himself caught out here by the dredge line. Levi now returning some nice damage, utilizing the power of the ultimate. As TSM has all 5 members onto this tier 1 turret bottom side, and they are not leaving without it.
And they're taking advantage. Ooh, TP is coming in from Optimus.
Immediately canceled. Not wanting to jump into that, realizing that his team is not in a spot where he would do anything but really die there. Might get off some decent damage before he did, but he wasn't taking anybody with him immediately, so he has to cancel it. Instead, just keep trying to put in some damage onto this top lane tier 1. There's no teleport up for Haunter, so he can't just TP to that and stop it. Looks like TSM's just going to choose to yield this one.
Yeah. What we saw was Optimus, he was down bot, and then the rest of Gigabyte Marines decided to stick around the bottom half of the map. But TSM identified that there are only 3 members with Levi, Slay, and Archie. And so TSM decided, you know what? You can't really take anything in mid because we already lost our tower. You've sent your Fizz up top lane, and even if your TP's in, we're a 5-man unit. So we're just going to group up and siege onto this tier 1 in the bottom lane, and they're able to get it for themselves. But the towers are still even. So overall, the game is still... Even after Gigabyte Marines seem to have such a powerful start, you expect like, oh, now they're going to snowball off of this lead. TSM is still being very smart in the way they respond. And I think this is super important because they're no longer caving to the skirmish style that Gigabyte Marines like to play. Instead, they're looking at it from a holistic perspective, and they're saying, okay, our mid lane is 0-2. We can move him around the map. We can use his ball to help siege and take down these outer structures to keep us even in the goal.
TSM refusing to play the Gigabyte Marine strategy is very important for being able to hold on in this early game, because when Gigabyte Marines gets to play that strategy, when Gigabyte Marines can lure you into that trap and make you take those 2v2s, those 3v3s, those small skirmishes, they're exactly where they want to be, and we've seen what this team looks like when they can be where they want to be.
Here comes the TP flank from Stark. They want to try and force a fight.
Enchanted Crystal Arrow goes wide left, and the engage is over. Dredge line coming back, will not be finding anyone. Marines still thinking about maybe looking to make something happen with Optimus off to the flank here, but the control ward from TSM did see him come in towards that bush. Very low amount of HP still remaining under this tier 1.
The problem for Gigabyte Marines is that TSM want to be grouped up as a 5-man unit. Optimus, while he certainly can have a big impact in these fights, Orianna can have an even bigger one. That shockwave can so very quickly swing the fight in Gigabyte Marine's favor, and as long as TSM are playing smooth and smart and just gradually sieging onto the turret, they can use that ball as a zoning tool to get themselves an objective and get themselves further ahead of the goal.
There you go, another objective, another little gold boost, and now they've got the track to Dragon. Is mountain number 1 this game. It has been a day of mountains and infernals.
Oh, it
There's
has
been so many of these damn things. I don't think I've seen a single Cloud Drake.
Are you sad about that?
Not even a little bit. These make it so much more exciting. These are the ones people will fight over. As the top lane tier 2 for TSM under some pressure. Haunter trying to defend this as long as he can. But it's a 5-man move from the Gigabyte Marines. And TSM can't defend it now. Haunter trying to go back into this. I don't know if that was a decision he wants to stick by as he's juggled back into the team. Not a good death, the TSM top laner.
Yeah, now, bear in mind, TSM, they just want to stop the backs because Bjergsen is sitting in the bottom lane. TP has just come up for Optimus, but he doesn't have his ulti anymore. So I don't know if you could confidently wave through and hold this tower against Bjerg. Instead, TSM, they're going to hold off, and they're just going to reset the game. Now, I think that was a big mistake from Haunter. He shouldn't have stuck around that tower when it was guaranteed to go down against 5 members. I think it was a bit of an oversight, lack of respect, and Gigabyte Marines keeping the game extremely close. 3-3 in towers. The gold is basically even. But with the TP gone for Optimus as well, it limits the ability for the Gigabyte Marines to effectively use their 1-3-1.
I mean, the first time that we see a big fight happen this game, the first time that there's something that really just explodes, like full-on 5v5, that's going to determine a lot about the tempo for the rest of the game just because of how close this has stayed so far. Any little thing, any little mistake that turns into a couple of kills could be that much more impactful than it would otherwise be.
And this is the kind of game that I really wanted, because in Game 3 it was definitely a one-sided stomp from TSM, which is great. But in terms of competitiveness, you want to see both these teams really bringing out their best. You want to see them really fighting for that spot. And I think it's difficult to say that the Gigabyte Marines cheese their way into victories, right? These guys have been sticking to a style that works for them, and they have been forcing TSM to find new ways in order to adapt. And I think that TSM have done a great job of adapting throughout the series. But now we're also seeing the same kind of adaptation from the Gigabyte Marines. They're slowing down their style. They're not being too reckless with the way in which they try and force things. And that's what's resulted in this very close Game 4, which could punch a ticket for Gigabyte Marines to the main MSI event.
And you know, we talked in Games 1 and 2 about Gigabyte Marines not just being a team that was able to confuse their opponents by playing this really fast, really hard style, but at the same time, once they got into the team fights, they looked good in them.
Oh, they did. It was very enjoyable to watch the way in which they coordinated. They knew when to hard engage and when to just slowly kite or gradually chase. It was very enjoyable to watch, but then the same again for TSM. These guys, when they get that lead, they are just so effective at knowing where to put it. The way in which they invest their vision, the way in which they took that Baron in Game 3 was just very clean. You can see that these guys do understand how to play League of Legends. But when the game is neutral, I put my bets towards TSM. I feel like they're a team that is more used to being in this position. They know how to play the neutral game, and it's going to come very much down to how well these teams can control vision and who will be the first to make that slight misstep.
And that goes back to the unfamiliarity that you would expect the Gigabyte Marines to be experiencing right now, considering they have been such a dominant force in their region for so long. They didn't really have much of a competitor in the GPL. It was just Gigabyte Marines. They beat everybody. That's what they do. So now how do they handle this neutral territory as TSM comes for the collapse onto the top laner? Flash away from Stark. We'll shut that down immediately. Explosive cast used as well just to make sure TSM doesn't get anything else here. The counter push will come up from the Marines here in mid lane as Sven and Turtle come in from behind to try to threaten them. They're gonna have Biofrost here with them as well. They might go for this 3v3. Gotta be careful about it though. Levi does so much damage. Cannon-Minion gonna be smited just to try to slow the push down, but it will not find any success. And with Optimus rotating over, that's gonna go well for them too, as Stark dies in the bottom lane, but it's the mid lane inhibitor turret that's now being knocked down by the Gigabyte Marines. TSM trying to come and collapse on this in time, but that is now an exposed inhib. Gigabyte Marines getting the better of the rotations here.
And they're continuing with the chase. Biofrost goes in.
Nice flash over the wave to keep himself in range, get some extra damage down. But the Marines have disengaged for now. Haunter making his way into the fight. Dredgeline gonna be flashed away from too. Haunter looking for a little bit more. Flashes forward, Riptide into the auto attack into the lockdown as Optimus has been behind the rest of TSM, and he finds the kill on the Turtle as the Shockwave makes the kill. 2 fish down as Levi comes back into the fight looking to finish off Bjerg, but it is not gonna happen today. Stark now trying to fight 1 versus 2 against the remainder of TSM, but as the last man standing, he's just got to walk away.
And think of the numbers advantage that Team Solo Mid now have. The Baron is available. Bjergsen is looking amazing. Being able to survive both Levi and Optimus is exactly the big wide window that TSM needed in order to get this objective.
Stark's got to be some kind of a hero here if he wants to stop it. And a hero
Stark!
He will be! Bjergsen forced to run back, keeping himself alive now with the shield. Stark gets a kill onto 1, but he stops the Baron.
He did everything that he needed to do. It doesn't matter that he died, and it doesn't matter that he only got the kill onto Biofrost. But let's have a look at this. Optimus comes in from the flank, and Waldula just takes so much damage. And you think at this point, oh, Bjergsen's in a lot of trouble, but this is the power of Orianna in this matchup. She has the ability to just have low cooldown. She has the added shield to mitigate a lot of the passive damage, and her trading power is very strong. Look at how this shield is always up and ready and it just mitigates so much of the dueling power. And the fact that Biofrost is there to just make things even harder, that resulted in him getting a lot of those kills and a lot of this gold. But now we see Levi and Optimus perhaps caught between a rock and a hard place.
Oh, Svenskeren kicks Optimus away, but now eats a lot of burst from Levi. Turtle, oh no! That was an interactive gameplay experience that he just enjoyed versus that Fizz. Ult into Proto Belt into Q. See ya!
But also, why was Wild Turtle there? Running down the river, giving Optimus a prime avenue not only to escape, but also to somehow win out on that fight. We talked a lot about it, the positioning of Wild Turtle. I can give him the benefit of the doubt in that top lane play, but there, I mean, like, there's no reason to be running down the river. Take the safe route as the arrow hits on the Bio.
Uh-oh, speaking of why are you there, Biofrost going to be eating a lot of damage on this one. Wave comes out, Bio still knocked back. Levi making his way into the fight. Bjergsen throwing the shockwave on himself, but it's not enough, and 2 fall on TSM. Gigabyte Marines, now remember, they've got this inhibitor exposed. And the push will come down mid lane. The traps just do not matter. They'll walk right over them and take this inhib.
And this is the skirmish style of the Gigabyte Marines. They find a random pick. Are they? No way.
Actually trying this?
This is risky.
Okay, Gigabyte Marines, they want to end this game. Monster's got to stop them somehow. Slay going to be knocked up. The damage coming through. Svenskeren looking to finish him off. He does successfully do so. Turtle is killed on spawn, but the rest of the Marines have been routed. Stark and Levi have to try to leave this one, but Haunter with the lockdown, and Spin is here trying to stay on top of Stark. They managed to get all 4. Now can they get Stark too? He stopped the Baron last time. They don't want to see it happen again.
Gigabyte Marines, they go for such a risky play. They try to end the game, and instead of ending it, they actually tried to get themselves more kills. That was the worst possible thing that you could have done, because now, TSM, they have 4 members alive. They're looking at the Baron, and this is going to give them the lead to get them back into this game.
That looked real scary for a second for TSM, but now an overextension by the Gigabyte Marines puts TSM back in a better spot than they were to begin with. Turtle will clear out the top lane. Wave that's just colliding into that turret.
Just like, it's this decision. If you're going to go for it, then you just hit the towers. But instead, look, Levi and Stark, they go straight onto Wild Turtle. Optimus is trapped here because he can't really do much for the backline that ends up getting demolished by Svenskeren and Haunter. And this was just way too greedy for the Gigabyte Marines. They were in such a good spot. Look at top lane. They just took themselves an inhibitor. They could have gained all this free vision around the top half of TSM's jungle and then set up for the Baron later on. And now instead they've given that Baron over to TSM.
Now how does TSM use it? That is the question. To get Baron is one thing. To have a big juicy Baron power play is another. This team currently has 4 turrets under their belt. So 2 tier 2s still left to push on there in the top and middle lanes. Bio, Bjerg, and Sven grouped up, pushing, seeing what they can accomplish here. The Gigabyte Marines actually backing from the bottom side of the TSM jungle, thinking that maybe somebody was going to come through there, but that's just not the plan.
Or maybe they go for a sneaky base race, but there's still 2 in there.
Yeah,
2 towers up, you don't have a minion wave. Either way.
Chancing Crystal Arrow finds its way onto Turtle.
He's fine, he's fine.
But yeah.
This time he was baiting it, right? That's
yeah, this time he was in a spot where it was all good. All gravy. Svenskeren always looking for that opportunity on the front line to be the vanguard, to be the guy who knocks someone out of position and opens this game up for them. Now it's TSM's turn, Vedius, to pressure onto the inhibitor lines and see what they can find. Optimus wants the flank, always setting himself up off to the side. Svenskeren will zone him for now as Turtle sets up the trap line. This is what we mentioned with the Caitlyn pick. The siege and anti-siege scenarios are huge for this champion just because of how well she controls zones.
But look at the flank.
Cast not finding much of anything. That's a pretty big cooldown to have down now. That's a lot of threat. No longer available for Gigabyte Marines to knock someone out of position. As Optimus comes in from behind, the turret goes down. Optimus having to run, Proto Belt to escape. Haunter on the front line, not able to find that dredge line onto a target that matters. Turtle pouring auto attacks into the inhibitor itself. Stark still wanting to come in from behind if he can. Inhibitor down to half, down to a third, down to a quarter. Adios! Last auto attack doesn't start, finds his way into the fight. Haunts are going to be soaking up the fish, though. A nice shockwave onto 2. Slay's going to be chased down by the ulti. Turtle falls to Optimus. Slay still alive. Optimus Zonia's trying to get himself out of this one. Haunts are looking to chase him down. A little bit more damage will do it. Stark's going to be going down next. 3 dead on the side of Gigabyte Marines. And TSM might just be able to make it happen here.
They have the Baron-empowered minions. They have the teleport from Haunter. Only Optimus and Archie is left to stop them. TSM, they're going to bring us to a game 5.
Haunts are coming back into the fight. Spin Scarin keeping Optimus away. They've got to just burn these turrets down. Archie's going to be going to, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be going to the final match as TSM will take down Gigabyte Marines and tie this sucker up. Listen to that crowd. Hometown or not, they know the words. TSM evening things up 2-2 and taking the Gigabyte Marines to the final match of this series. This one's for all the marbles.
Oh yeah, yes it is. And TSM, while they may have been gifted that Baron, they knew exactly what to do with it. They played that final team fight superbly. The way in which Sven Scarin was just constantly zoning Optimus away, preventing him from getting onto the backline. The way in which Haunter stood in a way to keep Wild Turtle alive. And there were just no more engaged tools on the side of the Gigabyte Marines. As a 5-man unit, there was no way they could win out on that fight. And then eventually they just waited for the Gigabyte Marines to get desperate. They punished them, and then they swiftly ended the game. But that could have ended in a very different way if Gigabyte Marines just backed off rather than tried to end the game.
Gigabyte Marines, though, they could smell blood, they could smell victory, and they just wanted to jump in there. But for a deeper dive into how TSM tied this series, let's check in with the analysts.
Thank you very much, Captain Flowers. Of course, very crazy game. This time around, we did see a much more even game coming in for the Gigabyte Marines. That had been kind of their stomping ground in games 1 and 2, but this time TSM shifted up their strategy a bit and was able to kind of stop them from taking over the game completely.
Yeah, but you do have to say the be-all end-all moment is Gigabyte Marines losing themselves the game. So whilst TSM may have improved just that little bit, maybe they refined some weaknesses, they got around their team better, they played as a 5-man unit definitely better than they have in games 1 and 2. Gigabyte Marines had control. They still had the game in their hands, and unfortunately, they're the ones who throw it away.
Let's take a chance then to look at that replay, of course. The 25-minute TSM base defense coming in. They want it, blood in the water, Captain Flowers said it, but not quite the situation they signed up for.
But at this point, like, the decision is already too late for Gigabyte Marines. Like, as soon as they move towards those Nexus towers and buy enough time for Haunter to cut in from the bottom side, then Optimus just gets taken out alongside Slay in the backline. It just... This fight theoretically never should have happened. Like, theoretically, you take that inhib, you back away, you take the Baron, you reset, you've got a 1-3-1 comp that you just go, okay, nobody can fight our Fizz, really, and then we just push in the rest of the lanes, and then suddenly you're in such a commanding position, but TSM go all the way with that base defense, then get the Baron themselves, then put the pressure on
Exactly, and I feel like Gigabyte Marines, we've seen them take a lot of high-risk situations, you know, and make it work out pretty much every time, but this is one of those games where the risk is too high. The reward is not there for you, and maybe they should have just backed off and taken the Baron. Is this now just a weakness that TSM can rely on, that these guys are going to go a little too ham sometimes?
I don't know if it's something that TSM have just worked out or should have known since before the series started, but they are aggressive to a fault when you watch the Gigabyte Marines play on Summoner's Rift. They will go forwards, and that's the problem. And sometimes it's hard to predict that someone's going to go forwards when you expect them to run away, because it makes sense to run away, and that's why it does work for them, but sometimes that can backfire, so yes.
But that's what makes the Gigabyte Marine so fun to watch, right? With Levi and Optimus, it's like, hey, this is going to go aggressive all the time, and Optimus found a lot of openings, too many openings against Wild Turtle, perhaps, on this Caitlyn, like just walking up to him, always getting the fish to connect, and it just seemed as soon as those opportunities were removed, Optimus was jumping in, getting exhausted every fight, and suddenly he doesn't have that ability to go right at the back line.
Well, it was kind of a game of inches, right? Because we saw such an excellent early lead be built from Optimus and Levi working together to shut down Bjergsen in the mid lane. It was transitioned pretty well, but TSM kept a cool head through all of that, which is something we did not see in games 1 and 2. And as we look at the last fight, you can see how much more patient they've been getting, how much more calm and collected they've been playing, because if they let that Fizz get in, if they let something get in this last fight, it just feels like disaster.
Yeah, Sven had been defending the flank for so long before this fight set up, and then you can see, okay, Wild Turtle this time drops incredibly low, actually is taken out of this fight, but Slay has already been exchanged. Levi doesn't have his life to put out the damage anymore, and suddenly Optimus isn't so scary if he's the only one left there, and they have to back themselves away. TSM easily recall out with the Baron up minion with the TP in and just close the game.
And you can see how much of a contested game this was. All of our other games pretty clearly one-sided. Maybe 1 or 2 moments where teams traded back small gold leads. But this game, very hotly contested until we got past the 20-minute mark. Now looking ahead, Game 5, Silver Scrapes is on the way. I'm not going to ask you to sing it. Mark Z is not here, do not worry. But what I will ask is what is the big strategy shift that has to come in for the Gigabyte Marines? Because it feels to me like this was their game to lose. And it feels like to me for TSM, they cannot afford to let it get that close ever again.
Yeah, I actually would look towards, once again, their jungler and say that Levi, whilst his Graves is great, I think Graves is a good champion, he should probably just stop playing it, not for his own reasons, but because if he's on an engaged champion or a Kha'Zix or a Lee Sin that's taken from Svenskeren, namely, I think that's the most important one out of all of those, it gives him the opportunities to be that big playmaker. Don't force Optimus to be the one flanking, to be the one actually engaging himself as the Fizz. Let someone else do that for you. Go in and out, work as a team better around your jungler. Don't just have him to follow up with damage.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you can get that Lee Sin, the engage potential, I still think the Gragas as well on top of that for the top lane has worked a whole lot better for Stark. So if you can get those 2 picks coming out of phase 1 in the draft, I think I'm less concerned with what Slay is playing if Levi, Optimus, and Stark in the top side of the map have something very comfortable.
And it's interesting, too, because so often we see junglers, you know, when they're really great at the champion, they should always be playing that champion. Levi feels like one of the few circumstances where even if his Graves is amazing, it's just not what the team needs in this circumstance, not something we necessarily always see.
And it's also, most importantly, taking it from Svenskeren. Like, they both can play it. It's Sven's best champion by far so far, with the Ivern banned away all of the time. Like, Levi can go towards the Elise, he can play the Kha'Zix, he can play these things, but if you get rid of what TSM are winning with, as well as picking what you are winning with in the Lee Sin, then you get the 2-for-1 special there. Like, it makes the most sense that coming into Game 5, we put him back on comfort.
All right, I'm going to put you guys both on the spot here. Game 5, one last bout on the Rift. Who is going to take it in the end? Stress, we'll start with you.
My head and my heart are saying 2 different things. No, it's that I think TSM have adapted enough that without another mistake out of the Gigabyte Marines, without another mistake out of TSM, I think they're going to close it 3-2 in favor of TSM.
Yeah, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that Wild Turtle is going to make an abundance of mistakes that Gigabyte Marines will capitalize on, but I think that as a team, TSM have enough to take it home themselves. I just have too much faith in them being in a Game 5.
But I think it's so interesting that we get to Game 5, and there actually are arguments for both sides why the #1 team from the North American region is facing up against the #1 team coming out of the GPL. That, to me, is a very exciting storyline as we go into what is essentially a best-of-1 to see who qualifies for MSI.
One final best-of-1. Well, we've got to take a break, but don't go anywhere because this series is headed for a Game 5. In just a few moments, we'll see if TSM or the Gigabyte Marines will claim their spot in the MSI group stage.